All right, let me call to order the November 2023 Southbury Zoning Commission meeting. Let's all stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, everybody's here. Public hearings, none. New business, 29 Heritage Crest Drive, PDD number 4, Kurt Bengston, petitioner seeking approval for storage shed garage for maintenance equipment.
I'm going to pretend to be.
Yep. You'll just come up and state your name and address for us, please.
I'm Helena Chedlinski. Kurt wasn't sure.
Can't hear you.
Is the green light showing?
The green light's on.
Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
Okay. Kurt Bengston is our property manager, and he wasn't sure if a family emergency was going to continue, whether he would be here or not. However, I'm a volunteer position in property. I'm the maintenance coordinator up at the Crest, and I live there. We've submitted a zoning application to,
I'm not
I'm
not
sorry.
hearing you.
We can barely hear.
If you just move it a little bit closer. Thank you.
okay, how's that?
That's wonderful.
Okay, we've submitted the application, which I guess you all have, to replace a 10 by 20 and a half foot shed with a 20 by 20 garage. Same location, obviously it would be wider. It is within the complete confines of Heritage Crest. We're not on any boundaries. According to GIS, we are not under, over an aquifer or wetlands or any of the other limiting criteria that would keep us from doing it. I don't know. I'll be happy to answer any questions. This is going to be on a concrete slab, and what else should I tell you?
Do I understand this is just a replacement?
It's a replacement.
Okay.
The current shed is not on a concrete slab. It's 25 years old, and it's on dirt.
Absolutely, just expanding the size. It's going in the same place.
Gotcha. Okay.
So as of
So
right now,
it's becoming more of a permanent structure, right? You're putting in a concrete slab now.
That's correct. We're expecting it to last certainly beyond my lifetime, but maybe 40 years.
Okay. Any other questions for now? We have a staff report from Jordan. Jordan, just want to go over it quickly? You don't have to read it word for word if you don't want.
yeah, no, pretty much it adheres to the necessary accessory use customary with incidental and aforesaid uses in section 2.1.4 of PD6 amendments, and the overall bulk increase would be nominal. This is pretty simple, straightforward as far as this goes. There's no issues with zoning setbacks. We don't currently have health department approval, but this would require going through the zoning and building department anyway, where health department approval would be required in order to receive those permits. So if you felt so inclined, we can make that a condition of the approval.
Why do we need health department approval? There's no facility in there, is there? There's no water, there's no...
They're getting involved in pretty much everything that we're doing these days. My understanding, yeah, I'm just
Okay.
trying to play nice in the sandbox at this point.
Okay, all right, we'll let it go for now. I don't see a big deal with this. They're just replacing the existing structure,
I agree.
but they're larger, albeit it is larger, but it still stays within the parameters of the original PDD as far as coverage and
Yep.
whatnot, so I I consider this, and I leave it up to you guys to say yes or no, it's a minor modification.
I would agree.
We can approve.
Yeah.
As long as we're okay with it. Jordan does have a resolution put together that we can work with and try to get this taken care of right now. So, Susan,
I don't have a copy of the
Do you have it?
resolution. I do now. Resolution, Heritage Crest PDD number 4, modification of detailed plans, amendment number 1, November 8, 2023. Whereas the Southbury Zoning Commission on 11/8/23 received an application for the modification of detailed plans for PDD number 4, otherwise known as Heritage Crest, application dated received by the Land Use Department on 10/31/23. Whereas the proposed modification of detailed plans would allow for the demolition of an existing 10 by 21 shed/garage and permit the construction of a new 20 by 20 shed/garage in its place. Whereas the commission has received request approval from the Housatonic Health District dated, and it's going to be something in 2023 to construct a 2020, as shown in the plan dated again in 2023. Whereas the commission finds the proposed use is indicated by the applicant to accommodate an addition of a 2020 shed garage and is in keeping with the pertinent regulations of the Town of Southbury zoning regulations and the PDD number 4 regulations. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Southbury Zoning Commission, the application is approved to allow, number 1, the demolition of the existing 10 by 21 shed/garage and replace it with a 2020 shed/garage for the purpose of storing and maintaining equipment used for the upkeep of property and facilities, subject to the following. A, the submission and approval of applications to the zoning department and the building department. And B, further, it is understood that any change of structures, use, or construction of the structures will require a new application and review by the Town of Southbury.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any, changes? Rod, you have question?
No change, no question.
Okay.
Good.
So the resolution as written is fine. I take it.
Yes,
Do I hear a motion to approve the resolution?
I move.
I second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next, application number 23330Z, 80 Heritage Road, PDD number 6, Gail McTaggart petitioner seeking approval to add balconies to the second floor of residential units.
For the record, I'm Gail McTaggart from the law firm of Secor Cassie McPartland with offices here in Southbury. I represent Pomprog Woods Life Care Center, and they've determined that the second floor apartments are not as attractive as the main level, and one of the reasons is there's no place to go outside. So the fix is to provide a balcony, and there's already windows on those units. You can see in the plans, there's 3 windows that are on those units, and the center unit would be made into a door to go out, so they don't have to do very much at all to the walls of the systems that are there. And then there's it would be a 12-foot wide, 5.5-foot deck. We provided you with copies of some of the materials that are involved, so it would be texture. I think you should have a picture of the gray material that's going to be used. There'll be no increase in bulk or coverage because underneath each one of those is already a patio facility. So there'll be posts coming down, they'll go through the existing facility.
Oh, I see.
And there have been a question that I was a little surprised at, that we needed to get some kind of a sign-off from the Housatonic Health District. Not sure why. I did get a letter from Bennett Sullivan Architects, who are the architects on the plan. And that letter's been circulated to you, but the important sentence is that the proposed work for the second floor decks will not have any type of conflict with any below-ground existing sewer system, infrastructure located on this property. We will follow up with Connecticut Water if necessary to make sure that there's nothing there. I think all of you know that that community is served by Connecticut Water Company. This commission approved changes to the PDD that allowed for that. It has a force main, comes into a pump station, and then the usual kind of thing. There isn't any way that Bennett and Sullivan Architects would plan a proposal that would come in and somehow affect the sewage system for the development.
Question regarding that.
Yeah,
Aren't they on the sewer, Heritage Village sewer system?
that's, it-
Not septic. So Pomfret.
that's what I
Health
just said.
Has no jurisdiction over that.
It's
DEP
my-
does.
It's my view that they don't, although in the past, they've gotten a letter in their file, just to show no problem. I think there is no jurisdiction. Okay.
That was Joe's opinion, is that they
Yeah,
don't
I
have
talked
jurisdiction.
I talked to Joe Kometz today about it. He's trying to cooperate with everybody, but he doesn't see any sort of an issue. I did consult and get the letter from the architects, because I wanted to make sure that I'm not an architect and I'm not an engineer, and I wanted to make sure that I wasn't misstating what was going to be done there. This would be a great asset to the residents there to be able to do that, and I think it's a good idea. Their plan is not to do them all at once, because they're going to do them as units are available and not used. So they're going to start with one unit, and then they'll go on, and they'll do it as the units, whether it's appropriate for those units. So if it's conflicting with somebody's residency, they're going to be careful not to upset that. And it is a pretty significant project. I think each one of these is about $50,000. Yeah, so.
How
it-
many are there, do you know? If it were complete, how many?
There's 49, there's
Units?
49 units that can have a balcony.
Okay.
And I think they're going to start off with one unit. They're interested to see how attractive that is and how that works and how accepted it is. But we, instead of coming in with just one unit to you, we decided the plan is to be able to expand it, and when a unit becomes available that they can do the work on it, to be able to go ahead and do that. So that's our reason for putting all the units in.
My question, Gail, is when the balcony goes up, does that create a cover for the unit below, the ground level? In other words, now there's nothing there, so you've
It does,
got,
but if you look at the plan, it's not the whole, it's not the entire
it's just a
deck
piece of it.
below. Yeah, so I think when you see the plans, you'll see it's just a portion of that.
Okay,
So there's a little bit, probably, maybe some shadow with it,
okay.
but it's not the whole area.
But it does create pillars
It does,
for the unit below?
yeah, it does.
Okay.
Maybe they will grow vines up those. That's what I was thinking, okay, that's a good
Okay.
use, yeah.
So it's conceivable, well, or maybe not. Is it possible that someone in a unit below could say, I don't want that?
I think they're
over
going to have to work that out as the units are available with people,
Okay.
because some people, and they will do them as it works for the people. They care about their residents and
Okay.
what they purchased and what they have.
there? Okay.
As long as there's no dancing allowed.
I guess not, yeah.
Any
So
other
we
questions?
thought it was, we were asking you to treat it as not a major change, because there's no bulk change really to the whole facility. The building's not changing. We're putting an outdoor balcony on a building. That's all that's really happening here. So we're hoping that maybe we could get it approved so that they could get started if a unit becomes available to do this.
Are there any units available now?
There is one unit that they looked at doing it, and I think It's Unit 237. So there is one unit that, there need, as units, they want to do it with an empty unit. So they're hoping not to have a lot of empty units. But as units become, that's why it's going to be, happen over a period of years. It's not going to be a project where they go in and just rip everything out and do this.
Is this considered a minor change?
We have to
Okay.
decide that ourselves, but before we do that, Jordan, just want to brief?
Yeah, no, looking through everything, it sounded good. Reaching out to the health department, it was Joe's opinion that they did previously have letters in the file, so that was what he wanted in order to be comfortable moving forward with this. So, again, relatively minor as far as the conditional approval of this. There is a zoning application and a building application that'll have to coincide with these, so we can, hold off on issuing those until the health department aspect is clarified, which I don't think, should take much time at all. It's a simple letter from the sewage company. But yeah, looking over everything, it seemed permissible. It's a simple addition to the aforementioned uses here on line D1 of 2.1.4. And then, precisely what Gail said, the bulk coverage, if it was to increase, would increase nominally. However, the point that it is going over existing units is sufficing for the bulk coverage. Moving forward, any other additions, we should probably get a bulk coverage calculation done, but that's not necessary here at this time.
Yeah, there was a bulk coverage calculation done in 2005.
Under
when they
Amendment 9.
increased that, when they increased the coverage by 1% for each one of your coverage ratios.
Yep.
On the Housatonic Valley, I have a little bit of response on that, because I had a discussion with Joe Kmetz from Housatonic today, and he sent me the approvals they did before. Both of those had capacity issues, sewer capacity issues. This one has no water usage.
Right.
So we will certainly follow through and make sure that there's a sign-off, but I think it's very different when we had a pantry, a cafe, a country store before, we had a swimming pool. We had uses that you could at least conceivably see that there might be some difference in the amount of capacity of the system to service. In this case, I think the comfort level is there really isn't any.
Right.
So,
Great. Any other questions?
I'm good.
All right, discussion. Minor modification
I think it's minor.
issues? Do I hear a motion to put on the record that we agree it's a minor modification to the detailed plans?
I move that we accept that it's a minor request for, and it is, let's see, application 23-330-Z, PDD number 6.
Amendment number 17.
Is there a second? Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
thank you, they'll be delighted.
Oh, wait. We
Yeah.
gotta read the record resolution. We're not done yet.
Oh, okay.
Have a copy of that?
Oh, that was just the minor modification. Oh,
Correct. Yeah.
okay.
Have a resolution? Okey-doke. Resolution 23-30-Z, 80 Heritage Road, PDD number 6, Pomperog Woods. Modification of detailed plans, amendment number 17, November 7, 2023. Whereas the Southbury Zoning Commission on 11/8/23 received an application for the modification of detailed plans for PDD number 6, otherwise known as Pomperog Woods, application dated received by the Land Use Department on 11/3/23. Whereas the proposed modification of detailed plans would allow for a 12-foot by 5.5 inches, 5 feet, 5.5 inches balconies and associated doorway to be constructed for second-floor units. This resolution does not include the construction of balconies for the second-floor memory care units. Decking to be pebble gray Trex, and the railing will be white vinyl over pressure-treated lumber. Whereas the commission has received requisite approval from the Housatonic Health District dated to come in 2023 to construct second-floor balconies as shown in the plan dated for 2023. Whereas the commission finds the proposed use is indicated by the applicant to accommodate the addition of balconies to the second-floor units, and is in keeping with the pertinent regulations of the Town of Southbury zoning regulations and the PDD number 6 regulations. Now therefore, be it resolved by the Southbury Zoning Commission, the application is approved to allow, number 1, construction of balcony and associated doorway on all second-floor units except for the second-floor memory care units. Balconies are to be 12 feet by 5 feet, 5.5 inches, with decking to be pebble gray Trex and railing to be white vinyl over pressure-treated lumber. There's a correction there in spelling. It should be Lumber. As all more accurately represented on the drawings entitled Exterior Deck, Plans and Exterior Elevations. Elevations, geez, thank you. Elevations, that was a hard word. Prepared by Bennett Sullivan Associates, Inc., dated September 20, 2023, and stamped received by the Land Use Department on November 3, 2023. Subject to the following: A, the submission and approval of applications to the Zoning Department and the Building Department. B, further, it is understood that any change of structures, use or construction of additional structures will require a new application and review of the Town of Southbury. Oops, excuse me. Oh, there's the back. Yes?
Nope, I think it's just.
Nope, that's it.
Okay,
All
do I
set?
hear a motion to approve the resolution?
I move that we do accept the resolution.
Second?
Okay.
Any further discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Now you're,
Now I can thank you.
I'll do that back.
It is appreciated.
Elevation, that was a hard word.
all right. Moving on, other business. File number 23ZC0001, 45 Main Street North, PDD number 7, Tim Fanti petitioner, discussion regarding amendment to PDD number 7 pertaining to privacy yard. Tim?
Want me to say something?
Yeah, I mean, we'll just start the discussion with
I'll
you. I
pick
mean,
it up
just
from
a
where we-
brief,
Left off.
yeah.
2 meetings ago, Jordan agreed that he would come visit the site, and he made his assessments, and then he decided that it was appropriate to submit a letter of inquiry, I'll call it, to the association to, ask for their input on the observations that I had made, and were substantially corroborated by Jordan. I'm speaking for you, but I think that's what it was. During that time, I also had the opportunity to be speaking with Tim Baldwin, and I solicited his opinion on the impact of the parking conditions, and he subsequently issued a brief memorandum, which was forwarded to Jordan, and I also submitted a copy to the association. So at this point, the issues that were raised originally continue. My understanding is that the commission approved a resolution back in 2002 that provided for the construction of a parking area and some access driveways, and that the permitted number of vehicles was to be 6, and of the 6, 2 of the spots were to be designated for ADA usage. In conjunction with that, there was also an expectation that there would be a screening that was to be placed, I'm going to refer it to the south of the property, as we're coming out on the curve, so I do that all the time, out on the curve coming back through the main driveway, and that there was also to be a buffer screening, which is technically to the east-ish, southeast, which to my understanding had been never built out. There were some shrubs in place at the time of the original construction, which remain there. One is deteriorated now and has fallen. The other two that seemingly were necessary to comply with at least our collective understanding of what was intended when the commission wrote some addendums to the site map proposed, without any elaboration of what was to be added, et cetera, but just that there should be a screening, a buffer, and, you know, we sort of didn't address it at the time. So what we observe today is that there's no buffers on one side. There's the beginnings of a buffer screening on the other side. There's parking, which I refer to as congestion parking, that can include anywhere up to 11 vehicles on a parcel that was designated for 6. That there's oftentimes parking in the hashed aisle leading at the front of the walkway, which Tim Baldwin indicates to me should not be occurring. There's typically, there's no designation of the ADA spots, so people will come as they go and take the spots first or second. Over the years, people have asked me, as the adjacent property, could we park, you know, because they're ADA users in my driveway. And then there's also the issue that was addressed back when the commission first gave consideration to the proposal, that they were concerned with the possibility of what they referred to, one of the commissioners of the zoning commission, that there was a possibility that because the grading of the driveway and the grading of the adjacent grassed area is equal, that there would be the possibility of overflow parking. So what I've observed is, over the past 18 months since we've renovated the clubhouse, and it's more visible to me as to what's going on, that there is frequent, not always, but pretty generally, congestion parking on the site, on the lot, and there's also overflow parking as we're coming out along the driveway, which was a concern specifically by the commissioner. At the time that it was addressed, legal counsel for the association, David Hill, indicated that, well, we could have two possible responses if there was overflow parking, one of which could be that the association could fine drivers that were doing this improperly, since there are, within our own rules and regulations, any number of places within the document where people are told not to park on the grass, whatever. There was also the proposal or the comment made by Mr. Hill that we could always use curbing along the outside perimeter, I shouldn't do that, outside perimeter of the driveway to discourage people. Well, he was talking, you know, somewhat speculatively. To best of my knowledge, no one has ever been fined for parking in any manner, shape, or form that's considered either congestion or overflow. And the second thing is that there was never any use of curbing to discourage. So that's sort of the situation here. My request to the commission was to reflect on all of this and, in my hope, to revert to what I refer to as approved parking. 6 vehicles, 2 of which are ADA designated, only 6 on the spot, no congestion parking either in the walkway or elsewhere on the spot, which could lead, as I've counted as recently as two Mondays or Tuesdays ago, 11. And to discourage, eliminate, preclude overflow parking on the roadway going outside. So that's basically how we've come. And I think recently Tim Baldwin acknowledged that because of the width of the driveway being 12 point something inches and the size of a truck, you know, going in would make it difficult, because when you turn, if there's vehicles in the driveway, it obscures the ability to get into access way, let's say from here to there. I mean, there could be parking here, and there's, I guess it's twice this size. So that's where we are. That was what I was asking to be done. Get it back down to six legal parking spaces.
So just to, wrap this all up, as far as the commission's concerned, we have a resolution dated 2002 that does stipulate the approved map. On the approved map, it does clearly show the parking spaces as they were approved. It also delineates 2 landscape buffers, of which the southern landscape buffer was never erected. And across the parking lot, similar to the southern landscape buffer, there was a landscaper buffer erected. I could notice maybe one of the landscape plantings that were proposed to not be in existence upon my inspection, and then one that was significantly deteriorated. However, it was in place during the necessary time that it was required to be in place. It was marked to be removed when we were over there. I'm not sure if it's still there or not. However, those were the outstanding items that we could understand as far as the resolution corroborating this approved map and what was seen and not seen on the site. The
What-
parking
what
spaces,
was-
yeah.
Sorry, what was marked to be removed?
So in the field, we saw this dilapidated tree that fit into the landscape buffer plan, so it was in place. However, it was in poor shape, so it was ribboned, and when I asked Mr. Fanti why it was ribboned, he had stated that it's likely to be removed. And then similarly, the 2 ADA parking spaces, I did measure to be compliant with their respective sizing. However, they're just not properly labeled, and the question of whether or not they could fit all 6 spaces, after I measured it out, it seemed more like 5, so there may need to be a slight expansion or a, readjustment of the placement of these parking spaces. But that's what could be foreseen as far as what should have been approved and what was not seen on site as being followed through.
One of the things that we also recognized was that there was a certain degree of noticeable ambiguity in what was intended when the commission, in going through its final deliberations, made those markings of proposed in response, A, to a discussion that some of the screening was already in place, and they decided that more would be appropriate, but without a definition of, or any elaboration of, well, what does that mean? You want me to replicate everything that was already in place and just shift it and move it down? Or is something else contemplated? On the other side, we have the somewhat similar situation that it's not really quite so clear as to what would constitute, I'll use my own phrase, an effective screen if you're really trying to screen for visibility and/or sight and/or sound. So at some point, if somebody decides that a screen is appropriate on either side, it might be interesting to have a clear definition of what the commission believes is an acceptable design feature.
And the challenge right now is you guys are handling an approval that was dealt over 20 years ago. So trying to figure out, and that's why we've requested that some members of the board and I believe their respective attorney representing them to be involved in a discussion today. And that's pretty much where we're at. So Tim, if you have anything else to say, by all means. Wonderful. All right. Any questions?
Unfortunately, I wasn't here 2 months ago when this was brought in, so I'm trying to kind of get my head around it. You're coming before the commission, do I understand that you're coming before the commission because you need to make some changes, improvements, and upgrades to this area?
I'm coming because I live directly opposite what I see. And what I see is a non-compliant situation with what I learned to be the details of the resolution last September. It wasn't until last September that I actually was able to obtain copies. And actually, it wasn't until probably August that I was able to give you a copy, because the versions of the approvals that you had in the Land Records Office were not the final approvals that I had received from the town clerk. So we were, compiling all of this information. But for me, it's a situation that if the zoning commission has approved a certain design specification, et cetera, that it should be there. Why should it be there? Well, mainly because it is a bit distracting and unpleasant for me to see all of this going on.
Okay. So your concern is that
And there's a
they're not
safety issue
in
associated.
compliance with what you believe?
Pure compliance.
I got you. Okey doke. Thank you for
Compliance with
clarifying
what
it.
was approved. I just want to
Okay.
see it done the way it was supposed to be done.
Okay.
Do we have the site plan?
Overall site plan?
Yeah, the approved site plan
Yeah, I'm sure we could
for this.
get a hold of
Because
it.
this is a survey plan,
Correct.
so the detail of all this landscaping should be on the approved site plan.
One other thing, what we learned in the process was that there was never any as-built documentation submitted at the time that the PDD amendment to construct the driveway and the parking area was approved and then constructed and then inspected. We don't even know, based on the discussions that Jordan has had, the degree to which there was a post-construction inspection, because there's no documentation of that.
In speaking with Mark Cody, every structure was reviewed for compliance, and there was an as-built submitted, because he was the zoning officer at the time.
Buildings.
Precisely, of the buildings. In talking with him, he would not assume that a certificate of zoning compliance would need to be issued for the parking application,
Right.
as this stands being.
We also know that the enforcement officer at the time really moved from Mark Cody to another gentleman. It was really in a transition that the approval occurred under, somewhat of his watch. But by the time that it was actually implemented and constructed, the name on the, one of the documents has someone else who is labeled as the zoning enforcement officer. So some transition transpired at the time. Who knows what happened?
Right, but the site should follow the approved site plan of the PDD, which probably should have details of this landscape buffer, details of the parking. Again, this is a survey, like an as-built survey, locating the buildings, 'cause I see coordinates and everything on the corners of the buildings. So there's gotta be another document in the file somewhere.
This is really where the parking showed
This
as
is an
detailed,
overlay,
as detailed as it could, especially with with any landscape buffers. This is the only document that kind of substantiates all of those aspects. I don't disagree with you. We likely have a detailed plan for everything, but as the clubhouse started to get kind of conceptualized, there were many parking iterations that went through discussion and
Yeah, but we had
changed.
to have approved a final site plan for this project, for this PDD or this amendment to the PDD.
Yeah, no, again, this is about as detailed as we've gotten with respect to these details, so
What about Plan B?
I'm happy to
The
look
map
for
with
one.
Plan B?
That's this one.
That's that one? Okay, that's it.
'Cause Tim and I
See,
kind of
This is not a site plan.
combed through this pretty extensively through the year.
Is the issue that the association is not looking to comply with what you believe it should be? I mean, is that,
I think you have to ask them.
Well, we
okay.
have two,
Right.
Good evening. I'm Chris Hansen. I'm an attorney with the law firm Sandler and Hansen. We're general counsel for the association. I've spoken with Officer Marchenko about this a bit. Really, the letter that we got inviting us to this meeting was to come and discuss why these things weren't implemented. And to be quite honest, your guess is as good as ours. This was over 20 years ago. When I started looking at this, I thought that it was probably the original developer that did this, and then I looked at the dates and saw that it was actually the association. But nobody on the current board was was there when this was done, so we really have no explanation as to why that wasn't done.
So if I may, how long do you think it would take the association to get up to speed and address these issues?
Well, I'm here with Jim Moriarty, who's the board president.
Okay.
And we've talked about, and I talked with Officer Marchenko about marking the parking spaces and putting in a few plantings, and if that would resolve the matter, we'd certainly take that back to the board and discuss it. Seems like a pretty reasonable fix to that issue.
So the issue of the safety and the aesthetics is, what was a concern of the applicant. So is that, has that been discussed or considered by the board as to how to resolve those issues in compliance with the PDD?
Well, with regard to the reference to what the fire marshal had said, we haven't been approached by the fire marshal. We have an email that went to Mr. Fanti, but the fire marshal hasn't talked to us about that and what the concerns are. We'd certainly address those concerns with the fire marshal, raise them with us. As far as the parking goes, there are occasions, I'm told that maybe Jim can address these a little bit better, but we're talking about a board meeting a month and then a few events during the course of the year. So to characterize the use of that parking area as frequent is not entirely accurate from what I understand.
Okay. So, I mean, obviously there's some tension here, but what I'm trying to get at is the board at least willing to be
Absolutely.
compliant with?
Whatever we need to do, we will take back to the board and discuss.
So does the board meet monthly, semi-monthly, bi-monthly?
Monthly.
Once a year?
Monthly.
Monthly.
Do we know when the next board meeting is?
So I'm Jim Moriarty, I'm the president of the board. I guess I'm the
Thanks for
president of
coming
the
in.
association. The board meets monthly, last Monday of each month. So the next board meeting will be at the end of November, which would be probably 27?
Few weeks.
A couple days after Thanksgiving.
Yes. So maybe we'll have some leftover turkey as we have our board meeting. So Mr. Fanti resides across from the clubhouse in the parking lot. He sees this much more often than I do. What I know is we have one board meeting a month. Most of our board meetings, at least last year, in the wintertime were via Zoom. So nobody was at the clubhouse. So there are people who come to the board meetings who drive. We have an older community. I walk to the clubhouse for the board meetings, even in the dark. I have a head flashlight that I use. But other people drive. So we're not going to deny that there's more cars parked there than 6, because we have a statutory obligation to hold public meetings, and that's the only place we can hold them. The only other time that I'm aware of when there would be cars in that parking lot is in the summertime, because we have a pool, but in driving by it, I've never seen overflow parking for the pool. People walk to the pool, or maybe you have 1 or 2 cars there. We do have events, and I would say probably 4, but no more than 6 on an annual basis, community events. We had a potluck dinner one time. We have a summer party where most people walk. There was a fall party back in September. I'm sure there were people parked for the fall party. My understanding, I wasn't there, I was on a plane at the time, was that we didn't have a great turnout for the fall party, so I don't even know how many cars were there. But I think, and again, Mr. Fanti lives there, so maybe he sees something that I'm just not aware of. I think it's an overstatement to say that this is frequent. Does it happen? Yes. So, as Attorney Hansen said, I've been living in Oldfield for 18 months. I can't tell you what happened in 2018, never mind 2002. I don't know if there were efforts to comply with whatever the obligations were to comply with. I do know that there are markings in this parking lot for parking spaces. They're just faded, so we can certainly remark the spaces. We won't be able to do that, I don't think, until the springtime, because we're kind of getting into the cold weather now. I don't know much about it, so maybe I'm wrong. And again, I don't want to give you the wrong impression. I don't have authority to do anything. I would need board approval, but I would push the board to remark these parking spaces. It's not going to be a big expense. As far as a landscape buffer, as Attorney Hansen said, if it's just putting up some bushes, we can do that. Again, I don't think it would be prudent to do it now. I think we'd have to wait until the springtime, but that's something that we could do if it will resolve the issue. Again, I don't know what was done in 2002. I don't know what was done in 2005. I don't know if there were plantings there that subsequently died and were pulled out. That's a possibility. I'm not saying that happened. I'm saying it may have. But to the extent that we can resolve this quickly by agreeing to do a couple things, I will bring that to the board. I will push the board to accept that, and I think they will.
So I have a question as to why it got here in the first place, if it could have been handled at the board level, and maybe Mr. Fenty would answer that. And I know you've only been there 18 months, but I would presume if the board wanted to comply and someone brought it to their attention and indicated there was a PDD, that the board would have been responsive. But I'm just wondering what was the gap that led to this point.
I met
you
with
know.
I met with Mr. Fanti, I believe, in September. It may have been August. And at that point in time, he told me that he was in discussions with planning and zoning and with the fire marshal. He brought to my attention what the issue was. If you go back into the history of this project, you go back to when it was born in the late 80s, and then you go into the 90s and into the early 2000s. It was built in 3 phases. My understanding is that there were 2 developers that actually filed for bankruptcy. A 3rd developer came in and finished phase 3. So the documentation, the historical documentation here is significant. And significant to the point where I can look at a document and I can say, okay, this is what happened. But it's not what happened because 6 months later, something superseded it. So Mr. Fanti did bring these issues to my attention. He provided me with a couple of documents. But again, this was a couple of months ago, and by that point in time, he had already been speaking with planning and zoning. There's a privacy yard, which Mr. Fanti is much more knowledgeable than I am because he is the owner of the privacy yard. The privacy yard is a limited common area. It abuts this parking lot. There have been issues that Mr. Fanti has had with residents walking through the privacy yard. We addressed that, and I believe as a board, us addressing that caused it, I'm not going to say it stopped, but summer of 2022 compared to 2023, I think 23 was much better for Mr. Fanti with people traversing his privacy yard, and they did it to get to the pool. They weren't doing it to be vindictive, at least I don't think they were. They were just, that was a way for them to get from their unit to the pool. So we did address that. And this is something that we can address as a board. Is there a reason why it hasn't been addressed yet? I think the direct answer to your question is it hasn't really been put directly in front of us.
How many units are in your complex?
I believe it's 53, but I could be off by 2.
51.
So it may be 51. I was off by 2.
Okay. And you're telling me that this clubhouse is not something that's used on a weekly basis? There aren't people coming and going with events? Sometimes it's just sitting empty for weeks.
Yes. And we as a board looked at the possibility of being able to rent out the clubhouse. We actually did a survey of residents to determine if there was any interest in renting it out for private events. And we came to the conclusion that we couldn't do it because of parking. And there was also an underlying insurance issue, but
Right.
primarily it was because of parking. So there was a group of gentlemen who last summer would play poker up there. Sorry. And I know most of them walked. And yeah, I know one of them had some medical problems. I think another one had medical, so they don't do that anymore. There may be a book club that meets up there. I think the book club actually meets at the homes of the book club members. And at this point in time, we're now getting into the season where a lot of our residents go to Florida. So the clubhouse, yes, it could sit empty. There's a women's cookie exchange I haven't asked why men aren't included, but it is what it is.
They're always like that, that's
for-
okay.
For the holiday, which will be in December.
Yeah.
And then, other than board meetings, which again, our plan is to do them hybrid, but I imagine that they're probably going to be just totally remote.
If every board member showed up, how many people will come to a board meeting?
So including our property manager, I would say at our most recent board meeting, we had 5 board members, property manager, and probably 10 residents.
Okay, so under 20,
Yes, and some
with,
are
with,
couples.
with 6 parking spaces?
Yes.
11 cars as of last week.
Some walk.
Okay.
As I said, I walk. I know one of our board members, our vice president, so parked in Mr. Fanti's neighbor's driveway because she's allowed people to park in her driveway to use the clubhouse. So there were more cars than parking spaces. I'm not going to tell you that there weren't. I'm just saying that it's not from my knowledge. And again, Mr. Fanti lives there, so maybe I just don't know what's going on. This is an infrequent issue.
But can I also assume that as of right now, your board and your residents are not fully up to speed with this level of concern on Mr. Fanning's part?
I think that's a fair statement. The clubhouse had a flood in it 2 years ago from a broken pipe. And this is before my time. This is just what I understand had happened. So there was an insurance claim made, and the clubhouse was renovated, and there was additional monies put into it for the renovation. I don't know that anybody ever actually thought about parking when they were doing this, but it's now been done. So we have a very nice clubhouse, and I am very mindful of the parking up there. I'm very mindful of Mr. Fanti's privacy yard. It's his privacy yard. He can exclude people from it. He has every right to do so. But I can't tell you that every resident is mindful of this. I also can tell you that not every resident is able to walk from their unit to the clubhouse. The clubhouse sits at the top of a very large hill. So for me, walking, I can do that. It's not a problem. For other board members, we can do it. Our July meeting, our August meeting, our June meeting, everybody walks up to it. Now we're at a point in time where it's dark early. People don't want to walk in the dark. As I said, I do. But there are a lot of our residents who just can't walk up that hill to get to the clubhouse. So if they want to attend the meeting, they have to be able to park there.
Even if it's not possible?
Yes.
Okay.
Is there a way to modify, or does it have the, the specs to be modified to
Does it have
increase?
the area,
Yeah,
more or less?
the parking spaces?
I think it could facilitate a few extra additional spaces. It would take some consideration and some re-engineering of how the layout is, maybe expanding pavement in some small areas. You're not gonna get 10 extra spots or 6 extra
Right.
spots. but-
How many are there now, right now? Excuse me, Mr. Fenty, how many are there right now?
So currently, I believe there's 5 spaces that are marked.
So you think 10? They could get 10 total?
No, see, that's tough. I could see
6?
1, 2,
Oh,
3 maybe additional spaces without overhauling the parking altogether.
Well, we actually can't do anything.
Right, I mean, expanding the service of the parking area would go into Mr. Fanti's privacy yard.
okay.
Right.
Okay.
There is, the reality is, I mean, I hate to bring this up again, but the commission approved 6 spaces. And there is, and I'm sorry to say, frequently, fairly regularly, in excess of 6, number one. Number two, it's frequent that people are not permitted who have ADA stickers to park in ADA spots because they're not reserved. As of last week, there were 11 spots. There's regularly, 8 is a very common number. There are often 9, 10, 11. I have pictures here to show the configuration which is why I refer to this as congestion parking in the square of the parking area, as well as the concept of overflow parking coming up the driveway, which was a very specific concern of the commission at the time that the approval was granted. So I'm working within the parameters of 6 approved, 4 regular, buffers, no buffers, more than 6, and yes, the privacy yard constraint limits the ability of the association to add another 3 or 4 feet on one side. In my opinion, suggesting that you could put more vehicles on the space that was originally designed for 6 legitimizes in some way some of what I refer to as the congestion parking, which Tim Baldwin observed. I have the photos if you'd like to see them.
No,
Tim
I'm
Baldwin
not being
observed.
adversarial, I'm
Mr.
just
Fanti, here's
asking
the
a
thing.
question.
We're not the board. We're not the condo association.
No, but
We're
you're
not
the
here-
zoning
We're not
commission.
here to enforce the condo association rules. We're here to see if the condo association can comply with the plan as it was laid out.
Well, that's
Now,
what I'm
now,
saying.
Now, please, Chairman's pointed out that we don't have the as-built plan. We don't have that in front of us.
Of the original approved
Site plan.
site plan.
Right, so we can't reach the merits of it sitting here right now because we don't have that. So, no, please. So we've asked the condo association to come here tonight, they've done that. They've indicated that they meet once a month. So my suggestion is that they come back in 2 months, that we find the site plan that can give us the definite view, and they can tell us why they ought not comply with the site plan as finally drawn.
Well, right now, as I hear it from you, Tim, there's 3 issues. Parking. Originally approved 6 parking spaces, 2 of which are handicapped. Okay, so that parking area should be compliant with our regulations for parking width
Mhm.
and compliant with ADA regulations for handicap parking spaces.
Right.
It's gotta be big enough to handle 6 cars, 2 handicap. The next issue is a landscape buffer, which I wanna go back and try to find the original
Yeah,
plan, because that's
yeah.
where it should show up.
Right.
Not on this plan that you found, Jordan, because that's just a survey. I don't even know if it's an as-built, but just a survey plan,
I understand.
okay? The original design plans that we approved under the PDD should have the layout, should have a landscaping plan, which lays everything out, which is what you're looking for.
I think this took place, though, after the original site plan was developed.
But there should be a second modified plan.
No one's ever found it.
And to Mr. Attorney Moriarty's point, this was the condo association doing that application. So it's possible that they just
didn't.
weren't privy to the fact that this was a consistent
All right.
aspect of
Well,
this.
that's issue number 2, landscape buffers. Issue number 3 is what's now come up from the fire marshal. Your congestion parking that you talk about, parking on the grass, the driveway not being wide enough. According to the state fire code, according to Tim Baldwin, the driveway should be 20 feet wide. And it's not. Again, this is after the fact. I don't want to start hammering the association to put in an I-84 through there. Let's try to work with what's there, but I think what we have to do is, we have to come to some conclusion between the association and you, Mr. Fanti, that everybody's agreeable and happy with what's going on.
Could I say one thing? With all due respect, I think it's an agreement between, let's say, for argument's sake, the association, me, because I'm looking at it, and I think the commission,
And the no, it's the
Who
commission too, because it's our
approved-
PDD,
yes, that's
our zoning regulation.
correct. Yeah.
And again, you came to us over the summer. The association was just informed of this, so we gotta give some time to work all this out.
Let me just say this. Back in July of 19, comments to Barbara Phillips, president, regarding prior permission ADA residents to park in my driveway because it wasn't labeled. November of 19th of 2019, comments to Barbara Phillips regarding prior permission to some other people due to congestion parking at the parking lot. September of '22, comments to the property manager regarding concerns about the consideration that the board was having at the time to rent the facility and draw in more people. October of '22, request by the ADA eligible resident to park in my driveway. November 1st of '22, submission to the property manager, a proposal to modify to add a no parking on grass, which we did. That was a great thing because it kept some people off overflow, but they moved to the other side of the parking area on the driveway rather than in the middle. April of '23, suggested wording to Joel Kahn, the board member, for possible changes to the rules and regulations about emphasizing that people shouldn't be doing certain things. July of '23, wording again, Jim, we updated the changes, the proposals. August of '23, copies to Jim of the zoning resolution and map B. I gave him all of the documentation that I had. August of '23, a notice to Nancy Whitfield and Patty Kaler about parking where they were, which was in overflow mode, which was half on the driveway and a part on the remaining grass area. October 3rd, to Jim, copies of the survey map that I had commissioned with designations of where people were parking, with the offer to meet with him and show him the pictures of what's happening. It had to be canceled, and it was never rescheduled. So I've been talking about this.
Okay. Well, I take it the association is willing to do their part and bring this up to the approved site plan that was part of the PDD amendment process. I agree with you, can't be done now, not until the springtime. Otherwise, it's just not gonna get done right. My suggestion right now is, let's try to work it out over the winter months, and come springtime, come March, April, hopefully we can have some resolution, and have it taken care of. Number one, to the satisfaction of the latest amendment approved by the zoning commission. And number two, even beyond that, if you can, to your satisfaction. Mr. Fan.
I'd be totally content with compliance with the resolution of the commission from, June of '22. I'd be totally content with that. With the recognition that there's ambiguity in some ways to the expectation of what was a screening buffer.
Yeah.
I mean, the rest of it is somewhat pretty clear to me. 6 spots, 2 designated ADA, only 6 spots, no overflow parking and no congestion parking because it's a concern for the fire marshal.
The site plan doesn't reflect no overflow or congestion parking.
And can I ask a question about the handicap parking, actually? Because I think I showed you when we met, the excerpt of the map that you had that was recorded with the 27th Amendment shows, I think, only one handicap parking space. And the resolution from June 2002 says, to be added to the drafted map, the proper handicap marking for the parking space. So are we talking about 2, or is it only
Yeah,
one?
to draft the map, the proper handicap parking for,
Typically,
The parking
handicap
space.
parking is based on number of parking spaces.
Right.
2 seems awfully, I mean,
Out
that
of
seems
6
like
spaces,
excessive,
2
6
is
spaces.
excessive, I would agree.
But then here
Okay,
again,
I just-
it's your association, and you claim there's a lot of elderly people, handicapped, challenged people that need the space. I mean, if you want to make all handicap parking up there, you can do that if you want, but.
I'm only concerned with 6, but let me reflect on that. If you were to go to the narrative of the meeting, the minutes of the meeting of the commission, where David Hill was making his presentation, he explicitly said 2 designated for ADA, et cetera. So in, the legislative intent or the background information clearly indicates what was intended.
And I haven't reviewed that material.
The parking lot is obviously small, and so the ADA compliant or handicap space, maybe that's not politically correct anymore, is not that much closer to the door than the furthest parking space in the parking lot. So I don't think we need more than one. If this commission says we need to, then we need to.
Well, I think right now, as far as that goes, it's whatever the rules and regulations from the federal government on handicap parking and the state building code, which there are rules. I'd have to, I don't know what they are off the top of my head, but I think 2 is excessive for that size parking lot. It should be just at least 1. But here again, if we approve 2, then there's no reason why we can't unapprove 2.
Sure, I mean, that.
And if you did,
I mean,
Redesignate it, it doesn't bother me.
right now, it's 6 spaces. That's what we got approval.
and if you did reduce one of the handicap spaces, which is currently
You buy
spaced
some
for a
wiggle room.
handicap, you might be able to fit all 6 spaces in.
It's pretty wide.
Yep.
Okay, so I think the suggestion was that we come back in a couple months.
That seemed reasonable to me, but you're the ones who have the meetings. I don't know if you have to create an agenda and circulate it and how hard it is to get people to focus on it. But, Mr. Fanti's been banging on the door for a while now, and I don't want to, from my point of view, I don't want you coming back early before you can tell us something. But I don't want to wait too long, so 2 months seemed like in between.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And
Here's some wiggle room on the parking spaces, too. I know we approved 6, and I assume the 6 approved were based upon our zoning regulations.
Okay.
Size-wise.
Right.
Okay, but since this is a PDD, we can change that size. I don't know if they're approved as compact cars or regular cars, but if the association wants to come in and request they all be compact and we can get a 7th space, we can approve that.
Okay.
Okay, you gotta change the PDD regulation, but it's something we can do.
Let me say this, I think that you can actually get 8 spaces across the strip, because we're already doing it from time to time. You just have to sort of decide if it's gonna be 1 ADA spot, and I think the rest might actually fall into place.
Well, I think the 1 is easy to do, as long as we don't violate the
It would be the state law.
slash,
State and
federal
federal,
code for
yes.
ADA compliance.
Yeah.
We can make that change.
And you don't rent the clubhouse out at all to, certainly to members of the public.
We do not rent the clubhouse at the
All right, I need to look at that then.
No. So,
So I
the,
was asking about how many
as I said,
spaces
the
you can
events are,
Exactly.
I mean,
a couple of community events a year and our meetings, and, maybe somebody goes up there to play cards, but I don't think when that happens that there's more than a couple of cars up there. Maybe people using the pool, but again, I don't think that we have a large volume of people using the pool
Well, here
at the
again,
same
it's
time.
it's really up to the association to police its own residents and make sure they understand that, there's limited parking up there. If we have a major event where you're gonna have 100 people up there, okay, you can't have, not everybody can park, somebody's gotta walk. Okay, but this is your problem as the association to take care of.
Let me say one thing, that in part, this situation is exacerbated a bit by the reality that over the years, during the development phase, the association had the opportunity to actually craft a walkway, a formal walkway, rather than a gravel, path, going from one side of the association to the other. Later on, when they were contemplating some of the more, the latter changes, they also had the opportunity to construct a walkway coming from the lower, a formal walkway coming from the lower level up past the tennis courts up to the parking area and to the entranceway to the clubhouse.
What kind of path's there now?
There's a path that goes actually through the woods from the tennis court up to the clubhouse. Mr. Fanti is a member of the association. This association is a Connecticut non-stock corporation. Every homeowner is a member, so he's also a member of this association. the association cannot afford to build a formal walkway. I mean, you're talking about something that would be at least a quarter mile, probably more. So we will, as a board, discuss what needs to be done. We will comply with whatever this commission tells us we need to comply with based on what was approved in 2002. The only concern that I have with coming back in a couple of months is, as I understand it, there's some final approval documents that need to be located. And until those are located, we don't really know exactly what it is that needs to be done. So I can't go to the board and talk to the board about what it is that we need to do to comply until I know what we need to do to comply.
Oh, I
Well,
agree with that.
I mean, I do agree to a point. I think we understand generally enough for you to have some substantive discussions with the board about what the believed intent was, what we believe the compliance requirements are, and to the extent that you have these conversations in good faith, knowing there is a document pending discovery wherever it is that will help to clarify, I think you can have some meaningful discussions about if this were the standard, what you need to do. And I think we've really like talked it to death here, and we
Oh,
have
yeah.
an understanding of what that looks like. And we can pivot when and if such time comes that we have, you know, the approval document that says, well, you need to tweak this. I don't think it's, I don't think it forecloses an opportunity for you to have to come back in, you know, 2 months, like the commissioner
And
said.
again, bear in mind, we're not the homeowners association.
Right.
We're not going to construe, or at least I don't feel comfortable construing this final plan beyond what it says. I don't think
disagree
it's
at all.
right for us to go in there, but everybody else might feel
I don't
differently.
disagree.
No,
If you
so-
believe
Mr.
that,
Fenty, I think conversations about the walkway, pardon me, is beyond the scope of our.
Absolutely.
no, all I'm
Absolutely.
saying is that over the years, the
I
association had
understand. It's clear
opportunities
that you've had
to
grievances with
mitigate
it,
the
that-
possibility of some
But
of
what we're
that.
here for, I think we really need to be tightly scoped on what we're here for. And all those other grievances, I understand, and I'm not disputing your frustrations living there, seeing it. That's not our place. We are simply trying narrowly to resolve the issue of the parking. And I think we're in, can I say, some sort of unison here that we're going to give the association some time to reasonably figure out what their plan is. And I think we're having those talks right now, and I think there's movement.
My last comment is, the only ambiguity that arises here is what's the scope of the landscape screen on the southern end, and what's the concept of the scope of the landscape screen on what we'll call the east end. The parking square, the driveway, they're all laid out clearly in the approval document.
Okay.
Yeah, we
So I
already
think
have.
my recommendation to you is to, you know, get a agenda outline that you think will help the board have a
I've given them the
conversation.
information, all along.
Right, so, but I think we're at a different point now. Give them an outline that you think needs to be considered, questions that need to be answered to help to guide them in the way you think they ought to come back. And
I can give them my wish list as to what a buffer would look like. But in my eyes, they have to determine if by all of the traffic rules, zoning rules, every other rule available, you can put more cars on that square. That's up to them. And if they can, God bless them. I'm okay with that.
Those are all, if I may, those are all internal questions for the board,
Yeah.
the homeowners association. Can we afford it? How much money do we have this year? Can we do it now?
I
Can we
don't
do
agree
it
with
then?
that.
These are
You've
not
approved-
zoning questions,
You've approved 6 spots for parking,
and that's what's there.
but they're not being used that
But
way.
That's compliance,
not
that's
the
a different
question.
issue.
But who's,
That's not the question.
So you have no there's no official group in municipal government that is responsible for ensuring enforcement of what you
I don't
approve.
think that's,
Not
I
on
don't think
private
that's what we're
property.
saying. We're saying that, we're not saying we don't have the authority to enforce what this commission has approved. I think
Exactly.
that's not what anyone's saying. We're saying beyond all of the other conversations about how they do it, about how they enforce it, and how they manage their organization is outside of the scope of
Oh, I agree.
this
Right.
organization.
We can't
So
control if
allow
more
them
than
to
6
do-
cars come.
You can't go more than 6.
Well, but we can't punish you if 8 cars show up. That's not in our purview.
Who does?
The association.
Your association,
The
You s-
association.
What about fire marshal?
the association,
The association.
the association.
It's still the association.
So you can put 20 cars on that spot, and it's okay.
No.
Nobody's saying
it's-
that.
But
because
why
we-
did you approve 6?
Okay, I think that, I
Because that's
think
what they
that
were asking
we're, I
Pardon
think
me?
we're
Yeah,
at
this
an,
is
what they
enough,
asked.
really.
I think
Yeah.
we're
But
beyond what,
At
this
some
is
point,
no longer
somebody scoped
meaningful.
it out and
Right.
said, that's what would fit, and that's what they asked for, because that was what was agreed
All right,
upon
all right.
in a settlement agreement.
Right now, going forward,
Yes, yeah, we do. So generally, we have one speaker at a time. And, you know, I think Chairman has, you know, indulged this conversation long enough. I'm suggesting we make a request that you come back in 2 months and tell us something more than what you're telling us tonight. And,
I mean, we hear your side, Mr. Fanti. I think the association has to come back and tell us how they think they can resolve it.
We will do that. Happy to do it.
Again, it's the wrong time of the year to do any type of plantings or construction. so
disagree at all.
We have time to work on this.
Absolutely true.
So let's do it in an amicable manner. Come back to us in 2 months with what you think you can do with what's out there with the parking.
But we can say,
We need at least 6 spaces. Right now, it's 2 handicap of the 6. If you want to make modifications to
you
that,
have this
come back with that.
close to the road.
Come back with a
whatever. We can do
landscape
those
buffer
things,
plan
but You're not gonna be able to
as
send it to the
shown on the plan, the 2 spots,
inspector. We
you know,
can
with shrubs and
based
trees
on-
of,
or
you know,
observation from the inspector
talk to
at the
your
time. What he's
landscaper.
looking for is for
Come up with
this to be
something
the
pretty
place.
No, I understand that.
And we'll have that discussion then.
Okay,
Okay.
Yes.
So, January,
cool.
Okay.
okay?
Yes.
Okay, everybody?
happy holidays.
Happy holidays, everybody.
I don't think they're gonna
Thank
say,
you.
I think they're gonna say it's outside the scope, like it's a crime being committed, right?
All right,
It's not a
next,
crime, it's a violation of a
zoning text amendment. We have a mandate that came down from Hartford on child daycare in residential zones. We can't say no to it.
It's
It's a
easy.
mandate. What we have to do is set a public hearing for next month. We have to change the zoning regulations to accommodate the changed language from Hartford. So, we have to set a public hearing. We're gonna approve it, we have to
Right,
approve it, but
right.
we have to go through the process of the public hearing process.
Okay.
So we're going to set the public hearing for next month. We'll refer it to planning for review. Do we have to refer to the various adjacent towns?
No.
No, because they're also under the same mandate, I would assume.
Correct, and it's not a zone change within 500 feet. It's just a regulation change.
Just, okay, all right. So, next month.
Very good.
Should be one and done. There's no discussion.
We'll have to read it, the record.
There is no discussion, trust me. No discussion.
No discussion on this one.
God, I hope not.
Well, yeah, you're right, I hope not, but you never know. I mean, by right, if anybody wants to get up and say yea or nay, we have to accommodate. All right.
You're on.
Next is any other business? None? You have none, Jordan?
I have no staff report either.
Okay. Just for everybody's information, you do know that Jordan's a new land use manager? What's your?
Administrator.
Administrator.
Congratulations.
Thank you for
No
your
longer
service.
directly works for us, but he does in a way.
Oh, he's everywhere.
Almost more so now. Somehow, some way.
He works
Us.
directly for Jeff, okay, so, bigger, higher authority than we
Jordan,
are.
have they put out RFP to replace someone for zoning?
We did.
Okay.
We've conducted interviews and we found a really phenomenal candidate.
Oh, excellent,
Excellent.
okay.
Yep.
Excellent.
Yeah, we actually had 3 candidates that blew it out of the water. I thought were phenomenal candidates, and we passed all 3 up to Jeff, gave him a hierarchy of what we thought would best fit this commission, and I think he chose correctly.
So you're going to have some support staff coming in soon?
I greatly look forward to it. Sonia just traveled to India last week and
Welcome back.
took a red eye in 3 days ago. I think technically she was due to go to sleep 12 hours ago. So Sonia, thank you for sticking
What is
through
it
this
now,
meeting
4
today.
a.m.?
Yeah, no, I could see you going to sleep over there, and I don't blame you.
All right, well, that's good.
I have
All
a
right.
quick question. Did we accept the resolution for 29 Heritage Crest Drive? Because I don't remember getting a,
Yes, we
we did? Okay. And, okay.
Yes, they're
Because I
both,
have Gary
they're
and
both,
Susan.
both resolved and approved.
Right.
Okay.
All right, do you have a report?
I do not know.
You're not the zoning enforcement officer anymore.
I technically am. Just an
All right, so no
overworked
report.
one.
Any correspondence? No. Everybody go to their class?
Yes.
Yes.
Looking at you, Wendy.
Everybody went to the class.
What's the
In my
what's the
defense,
penalty?
I do have, right, Sonia? I have a scheduled
Yeah, you're great. No,
pending
trust me. You're the last person I'm worried about.
2027, right?
2020.
Okay.
Thanks for
I
bringing
heard
that
the
up, though.
food- I heard the food's good.
The food was good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Really good
As
presentation.
a land use attorney, don't you get off that?
Well, is there food at the event that I'm going?
No.
YOB.
You get punished.
Oh, well.
Yikes.
Minutes, last 2 meetings. Let's start with July. Any issues?
I read both sets of minutes. I didn't have any
Okay.
issues. Did anybody? with
Nope,
any
I
of
read
them?
'em. They're
Good
good.
and twos, then. Do I hear a motion to approve both?
I move that we approve the minutes for both
Second.
July and September.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, both approved. Any bills? No. No bills, right?
We have one bill for
We do?
$52.26. It was for
Publication.
supplies.
Okay.
What was it for, Sonia?
It was for folders and labels.
Oh, well,
We have to pay for folders and labels? That should come out of the general budget
I was
of
going to
town
say, could
hall.
you just go to the stock room and
Yeah, go to stockroom.
pick
Pull
them
it
up?
All right, do I hear a motion to approve that bill?
What bill? Oh, the
Please approve my
$52.
folder, Susan.
I move that we approve that $52 bill.
Thank you so much.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can I move that we adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Gotta vote on that one.
Oh, God.
Is that yours?
Sorry, I couldn't hold myself. I'm sorry.
No, I'm happy and thrilled. I think